Hello and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to Your Yes-Filled Life. And if this is your first time here, I'm so glad you're listening. My uncle died on Friday. It's Sunday. And I've been talking to my cousins, to my mom, my daughter, my sister, and something keeps happening when I do. When I'm alone, I definitely feel that melancholy feeling. I'm sad to have lost my uncle. I have my own grief and feelings about his death. But when I talk to one of my cousins, even answering the phone or dialing, that's a little old school, pushing their name, tears start running down my face. I'm not calling my cousins because I'm crying and need them to help me feel better. It's not that. I'm not asking anyone to hold emotion for me. I'm calling to connect with them, to support them, and then I'm crying. Those are moments where I'm having an empath moment. And my bet is if you're drawn to this podcast, you are a sensitive person, a feeler, somebody who has deep empathy and compassion. Maybe you are an empath. You're probably intuitive, and you probably can relate to this on some level. Now, we're biologically tuned to be empathic in a certain way. We know that the vagus nerve firing in some cases will help us to empathize with people. That's what the lump in your throat is. When you notice somebody crying and you feel that lump in your throat, this is a little different. This is more than that. This is more than just being empathetic. We're designed to be empathetic. We're biologically coded to have empathy for other humans. It's part of what connects us. We know from the research done by Institute of Heart Math that our heart has mirror neurons that will remain in motion once we've had a connection with somebody, even what they call non-locally, meaning you're not in the same room, you're not in the same place, and those mirror neurons are still responding to one another. So there's a lot of science to back this, but what I'm talking about is something more. This is not me having empathy for my cousins. This is me actually being with their emotions. And because I love them, I am even more prone to being responsive to their emotions. And because we're FaceTiming, I can see facial expressions, and it's even more alive for me because now I'm using my sense of hearing and my sense of sight in the interactions. So are the tears mine in that moment? Well, they're coming down my face. Are they mine? Well, this is what happens inside my body when my grief meets theirs. I've been thinking about creating a file called Unfiltered Empath. And we're starting episode 1 of the Unfiltered Empath. And I have this series also going on social media. There will be some similarities, but the podcast will have its own flavor and own stories. So if you're not on social media, you're not going to miss the juice. But if you're on social media, you're going to get to see a lot of things in real time through the Unfiltered Empath. And apparently, life handed this to me before I really launched it because I went to a training with my coach, Tiffany Carter, and she was talking about we need to create series. And I was thinking about, well, what should I do? And that was actually the day that my uncle died. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should just do the Unfiltered Empath, like, and take you through the experience of what it's like to be an empath in the world. And I can't tell you the number of videos that I have recorded and banked since making the decision to create this series because I'm taking you into my daily life, into what it's like for me the day my uncle died. And I decided to go shopping at Trader Joe's because being around the people at Trader Joe's felt good because they're so happy there. There's great music. I know the words to everything. It's all like 80s music. There's seasonal snacks. It feels good. The checkout people always speak to me. They want to know what's going on with my day or what I'm going to do for the evening. It just feels good. So I know that when I'm having a time of sadness or grief or frustration or fear, that getting myself out of that energy into some place that feels better is absolutely key for me. And my emotional support store is Trader Joe's. And so I make a point to get myself out of the house and go to Trader Joe's on those times when I know I need to be, you know, a little more supported. So I want to talk about what it's actually like to be an empath. I teach you a lot about ways to navigate, and I teach you a lot about the nervous system regulation and how to develop your intuition and how tending to your empathy and getting it really well harnessed is the key to allowing your intuitive gifts to come more forward. But I haven't talked a lot about what it's like to actually be an empath on a day-to-day level. And I want to because I want you to know that what you have been hearing on the podcast is me regulated. It's me after I've done the work. And a lot of my social media videos up to this point have been me after I regulated, after I've done the work. But you're at home in a moment, having an empath moment of your own. And I can promise you that my empath moments are not all put together. I am quite unhinged a lot of the time. So I'm going to take you behind the scenes. So every time you see an episode called Unfiltered Empath, you're going to know I'm taking you behind the scenes. And I invite you to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet, wherever you're listening, and to share it with somebody else who you know is an empath. Because the thing is, most of us empaths think, I bet I'm the only one. I bet I'm the only one who does this. I bet I'm the only one who feels this way because so many of us have felt so weird for our entire lives. We felt like people don't get us. We're told we're too much. And then sometimes we're told we're not enough. And then we end up holding emotional space and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we've talked about that. But I'm going to take you behind the scenes where it feels a little bit more like you're just with me on a day-to-day basis. Okay. We're not going to talk about all the how-tos in these episodes. We're just going to share. We're just going to talk. We're going to notice. So my uncle, his name was Curt, and he was the second eldest of my dad's brothers. My oldest uncle, John, passed away a number of years ago. And my Aunt Connie, who was Curt's wife, passed away shortly after my Uncle John. And so it's just been Uncle John and my Uncle Ken and my Aunt Carolyn and then my dad for a while. And when my dad died in 2024, then it was just the three. It was just Uncle Curt, Uncle Ken, and Aunt Carolyn. And Uncle Curt was the oldest. He was getting ready to turn 95. And, he had never been a complainer, ever. He was the person who was so into technology before we even knew what it was. Like, he was sending me email birthday cards before that was a thing, and email birthday cards that opened like from American Greetings or something. And he was single handedly responsible for us having our home computer when no one had home computers. We had an Amiga because my Uncle Curt researched it and said, this is the one you need. And then when he decided to move to Apple, we moved to Apple because he just had done the research because he was so into tech. And he was active and fit. He was biking up, I think, until his 80s. He was biking. He hasn't been able to bike the last few years, but I know that his activity level was a big part of his longevity. And I feel sad to have lost him because he was somebody that always had a smile, was always in a good mood. Even if he was in a bad mood, he was in a good mood and he was pleasant. And he was just fun. There was so much laughter whenever he was around. I mean, my family laughs a lot, but he was definitely a big part of that. And I have so many memories of really pivotal events that he was a part of. And yeah, it's going to be it's a big loss for our family. And so I have my own feelings about it, but I had my own relationship with my Uncle Curt, and I was so grateful that I reached out to my cousins on Friday, and something just told me it was really important to do so. Or Thursday, excuse me. I reached out on Thursday, and one of my cousins had sent an email to the family saying, "Hey, we have now made the choice to move into hospice." And that was so similar to my dad because my dad didn't go to hospice until like right at the very end. And this was the story here too. And then, um, my cousin had said FaceTime anytime. And then I knew that the rest of her immediate family, her siblings and children and nieces and nephews and so forth were coming. And I didn't want to be intrusive, but I really kind of wanted to talk to my Uncle Curt and I wanted to talk to my cousins. And so I just texted all my cousins and said, hello, I'm thinking of you, so on and so forth. And then one of my cousins FaceTimed me and I happened to be in the room with everybody on that FaceTime. And it was really powerful. And my Uncle Curt woke up briefly and made really brief eye contact with me through the FaceTime. And we got to speak to each other. And that was really meaningful. Okay, so these are my tears. These are my tears. But when it's my tears, I feel I feel the sting of tears in my eyes. Like how tears kind of sting. And then I feel the emotions and they feel very centered in my emotional body, which for me feels like it's around my heart space. And then when it is my empath that turns on, it changes. I was going to say changes, shifts and changes. It changes. And when it is my empath tears, the sting is not present in my eyes. It's just like they leak. My eyes leak down my face. I don't feel like I'm actively crying, like I'm not having any breathing changes. It's just literally tears leaking down my face. And then I feel the sensation in a different place in my body. It's very, very subtle, but it feels like it's so much deeper inside my body, but it's smoother. And even though it's deep inside my body, it's also outside my body, which I know this might not make sense, but then again, it might make perfect sense to you, which is why I'm describing it. And the reason that it's really important to know what it feels like when it's yours versus what it feels like if it's not is this is the work as empaths. We have to be able to distinguish and discern. And one really important reason is if I thought there was any way in which I would call and expect my family members to hold my emotions, I would never make the call because it wouldn't be appropriate for me to call and expect them to hold my emotions for their dying father and grandfather, right? So having that discernment was really essential to me being able to cleanly know I can make this call, even though I have tears running down my face, because I'm not asking them to energetically or emotionally hold. And I think that's a really important thing that I've had to learn. And it took me some time to figure it out. And what it meant was I shied away from really emotional interactions sometimes because I wasn't sure if it was emotionally clean. But now I know the difference. I show up and I just let tears flow if they need to flow. People can feel the difference. And I think that it becomes really interesting for us as empaths when somebody that we love is hurting. And there can be some things that come up for us. Like one is we could start to question, who am I to have an emotional response to this? Because it seems like they're in much closer proximity to whatever happened. That doesn't mean you don't get to have feelings. Another impulse that some of us empaths will have is like, well, let me be the strong one. Let me just hold the energy for everybody. I will be the emotional regulator of the room. And that is something that I have done historically too. I'm not doing that in my current life, but I have done it. And there was a little bit of worry on my part. I was worried. I can't go into this description with everybody because first of all, not everybody cares. And second, not everybody's an empath and will even get it. But so there was a little bit of worry about me being visibly crying on these FaceTime videos because I really didn't want them to think they had to emotionally hold me. But I think people also can feel it emotionally when I'm holding me. It comes back to like with the frame in dancing. When I've got my own frame, I've got me. And people can feel that energy from us. When you've got you, people can feel it. And I do think that I have a tendency, and I'd be really interested in hearing from you. I have a tendency when it's heavy emotions for me to not want other people to carry that too. So I'm really discerning and careful with how I share my own emotional experiences with people because I don't want them to have to carry it, which can sometimes mean, and I've talked about this before, is one of my shticks tends to be, never mind, I've got it. I'll just do it all. So there are a few trusted people that I have that I know won't hold it for me, even if they could, they won't. That is so energetically clean that those are the people I choose to have my emotional experiences with because I know that they're not going to absorb it. So it feels like I can actually let it out if I need to. And when I think about what's happening in my body, when I'm getting ready to be like the empathiest of the empaths, oftentimes there's something really subtle in my wanting to control how other people feel. And so if I catch myself in any version of I want them to feel, I don't want them to feel, I am really careful to check that within myself because I know, oh, that's my like people pleasing version coming back online. And the people pleaser that wants to be of service, that wants to be needed in me and probably in you too, um, there's a little bit of selfishness in that, honestly. We're doing it for the credit. And so I'm also really careful on the motive. Like, why am I reaching out? Is it because I genuinely want connection? Great, then I'll reach out. Is it because there's any sense of I want them to think or feel a certain thing? for themselves or about me, I don't reach out because that's not energetically clean. So I clean that up and then I'll reach out. And sometimes we just need a little outlet, like literally a physical outlet to get energy out. For me, it happens in two pretty consistent ways. One is through tears. It'll just come out through tears. You're going to see a lot of those on social media this week because there's been some things that have happened, both wonderful and not great, honestly. And for me, it leaks out in tears. The second way I can alchemize a ton is through movement. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about it in terms of ADHD and CPTSD. And we know that both ADHD and CPTSD mean that there's less dopamine receptors in our brains. So it takes a lot more dopamine for us to feel the dopamine. And so a lot of the behaviors from people with ADHD or CPTSD are dopamine seeking behaviors. And um, a lot of my own behaviors are dopamine seeking behaviors. Why do you think I love dance so much? I am getting my daily dopamine hit. And it's healthy, it's connective, it's exercising my body, and it's bringing me around people. And it's truly a dopamine hit. Every single thing in my business, in my life, in my relationships has improved since I started dancing so much. I have attended, well, I haven't checked today because I don't know how it resets, but the last time I looked at my attendance at my studio, I had attended 66 dance classes in 30 days. And that tracks. It's like 2 to 3 a day. And then I take a couple of days off a week. And my business is improving. Why? Because I'm not seeking dopamine by inventing new offers. I'm seeking dopamine on the dance floor. I'm not seeking dopamine by scrolling. I'm on the dance floor. I'm not seeking dopamine by eating or Netflixing. I'm getting it on the dance floor. And so outsourcing ways, like literally getting emotions and different things out of my body through tears or movement is essential. But then also that gives me the dopamine that I need. And probably you need too, because you know what? I have yet to meet somebody who's very intuitive, somebody who is an empath, who doesn't also have at least some markers of ADHD or CPTSD. I just said what I said. So I'm not going to be sorry for it. So feeling something with someone, like for example, when I call my cousins, is not the same thing as being responsible for what they're feeling. And that's a very important distinction. I'm not taking it on. I'm not absorbing it. I'm not responsible for it. So you can cry with them, you can love them, you can witness their pain, you can have your own pain, but you don't have to fix it. There's nothing to be done. Now, this experience that I'm having over the last few days is kind of extreme in the sense that we don't deal with death every day. Well, I mean, some of us might, but it's more on the extreme side. But let's talk about how this pattern might show up in really ordinary, everyday kinds of things. Someone's disappointed and suddenly you're uncomfortable. That is an empath moment. Or someone walks into the room and they're irritated, they're already hot about something, and you feel every muscle in your body tighten. Or maybe for you, it's like your friend is anxious, and before you know it, you're anxious too. It's sort of like co regulating anxiety. It's almost like you'll take one for the team, you'll take on some anxiety too. Or maybe somebody that you love is hurting and you immediately start looking for how you can fix it, how you can improve their situation, and you're going right into problem solving mood. Mood? Maybe. Maybe problem solving mood. I meant problem solving mode. And think about anytime someone else's emotional response is bigger than yours, I bet a lot of times if you're not careful, their feelings automatically become the priority. The question isn't whether or not I care about what somebody's feeling. I do. I do care. The question is whether or not I am taking on any responsibility for how they're experiencing emotions and whether caring would require me to leave me. That's the unfiltered empath is I'm no longer, oh my goodness. You can tell it's been a couple of days. I am no longer available for any type of co-regulation or service or empathy or friendship or relationship at all that requires me to leave myself. I'm not available for it. And that's something I'm doing really differently. And part of what I'm doing really differently is I let myself cry. Up to 2022, I did not. I could hold back tears for almost any situation, and I did. And then something happened when I was working on my breathwork certification and my somatic coaching certification that it just really unlocked things for me. And it feels so good to just let stuff out if I need to. I also don't judge my emotions. I let them flow because I know that my emotions, even my toughest ones, will resolve in about 90 seconds. We know this from neuroscience, we know this from psychology, we know this from endocrinology, that when we start tracking big emotions, the wave lasts around 90 seconds. Now, complex emotions like grief, it's going to take you more than one 90-second thing to resolve that emotion, right? I'm not trying to say you're going to get over grief on something in 90 seconds. You are going to get over that wave in 90 seconds. Will it come back later? Yeah, probably, especially with something as complex as grief. It will come back later, but it'll help you get through that thing in 90 seconds. I promise. We always think we won't. We always think we're going to get stuck there forever if we let ourselves feel it, but that's just not, it's not true. There's a lot of research to say it's not true. So it's really key for me to, as I repattern things, and let's be clear, I've been doing this work for a long time. And so it might be a different starting place for you, but I really try and stay aware of what is happening in my body. Is my body relaxed? Is my body feeling good? Is my body tightening? Is it tense? Is there pain or discomfort anywhere that wasn't there a moment ago? I really try to stay present to what's happening in my body because I get so much information through my body as part of my clairsentience that my body is often communicating with me in ways that the other, like my mind, isn't necessarily communicating. And so, as far as like what I'm doing with my family, I'm just letting everybody have their own experience without trying to fix it or control it or improve it. I'm doing what I hope is kind things, and I'm sending pictures and I'm sending texts just to let them know I'm thinking of them, but I'm not trying to take it on. I'm not trying to save them from this experience. I'm not trying to make sure that they need me because they don't. They love me. They want me around, but they don't need me. And I'm okay with that. And by the way, this is a little aside, but that is really what the energy is pointing to right now. And I would go so far as to say, whenever you're listening to this, whether or not it's at the time of this episode airing, there's a real move toward finding your sense of worthiness from some place that's not tied to what you do, not tied to your achievement. Which goes along with something else that I'm really intentional about right now, as far as like my own unfiltered empath, which is I'm noticing what I need after these conversations. And what I needed after these conversations on Friday was space, which is why, for the first time in a long time, you didn't have an episode waiting for you at midnight on Sunday morning. That's why this episode is a little later, because I knew I needed space. And I'm not sorry. I'm not apologizing. I needed space. So the podcast came late. It's okay. Everyone's still okay, right? And then I'm giving myself space to release whatever needs releasing. And I'm reminding myself that being present doesn't mean I have to take responsibility for someone else's experience. And then Last night I did this really fun event with a bunch of my level two friends from the dance studio. We went to salsa on the roof. We all went there independently and then we met there, and there was like this little corner where we all gathered and we could dance with each other and we could dance with other people that were there, and it was really fun. And I was having an amazing time. It was incredibly beautiful. There was this gorgeous orange sunset hue, but we weren't in the sun, and it was great music and super fun. There was a dance floor that they moved out onto this rooftop. It was literally like a rooftop on the third floor. It was so cool. And then I noticed like there was a shift in my body. My body got tense. And I found my body wanting to walk towards my bag to change my shoes. And all I could think about was I really got to change my shoes, meaning change out of my dance shoes into my sandals. And I thought, wow, okay, my body's telling me we're done. We weren't done. Like it was 8:30. It went till 10, but I needed to get home to take out Bentley because Bentley hadn't gone to the bathroom before I went to the salsa on the roof, and I was really concerned about that. And so I said, and I truly meant that I would go home and let him out, and then if I could, I would drive back downtown to Portland, but the Pearl District is like 30 minutes from my house. And so I knew I'd be pushing it, but I gave myself the option that I could run home and let out Bentley, take a break, and then go back if I wanted to. I ended up deciding that I just needed to stay home. But I hope to go next time. But was I disappointed to have left the event early? Here's the weird part. In a way, yes, because I did want to go hang out with my friends from level two, and I did want to go for dinner, but my body was telling me, we're done. We're at saturation point. We got to go. And there was a lot of stimulation. There was like wind. There was crows like flying and circling above us. It was pretty incredible. It was really beautiful. And there's great music and tons of people, and a lot of the people I knew and a lot of the people I didn't know. And I danced with partners that I know and I danced with partners that I don't know. And it was really fun. And then I was realizing I didn't eat enough. And anyway, I went home. So sometimes being an unfiltered empath means I'm just going to go take care of me. It's not always what I want to do, honestly. I kind of wanted to stay and dance more and go for dinner, but I also knew my body was telling me, hey, we spent our energy budget today. That's the reality show part, right? Where it didn't end up in a neat little bow, or, yeah, it wasn't neat and tidy. It wasn't neat and tidy. And that's the thing. Being an unfiltered empath is not neat and tidy. It's just not. But it's cool and it's fun. And being an empath has a lot of perks. Example, we're just as prone to being affected by positive energy as we are negative energy. And so going to events like Salsa on the Rooftop or Trader Joe's is just as impactful as something sad happening because we can shift the energy. Maybe that's one of my favorite parts that I'm really leaning into about being an empath, that feeling deeply doesn't always require me to do something. Sometimes it just means I let myself feel it without explaining it or fixing it or making it go away. So every time something says unfiltered empath, you're going to know I'm taking you behind the scenes, peeling back the curtain. And you can let me know if you like this. In fact, I really am requesting, let me know if you like this. I'll do more if you do. And you'll see more and more unhinged versions of me. And if it's not your style, I'm open to that too. Let me know. Give me some feedback because I know listens have really been up on the podcast lately. By the way, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. And so I want to give you an opportunity to tell me what you want. So thank you for being here. If you could do something for me, I would be really appreciative. could you please leave the podcast a rating, a review, or a comment wherever you're listening? It means so much to the podcast and it helps get the show into the ears of new listeners. And I really feel like with everything that's happening, we're witnessing a new renaissance. We're witnessing more and more and more people need places where they can share their intuitive, their spiritual gifts together. And my mission is to really help create an army of empaths. So let's go. Thanks for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.